Hi, and welcome to this episode of HR and Cocktails. For those of you that are new to us, HR and Cocktails is a podcast about all things HR. We talk about everything from recruiting, onboarding, strategy, and everything related to the employee experience. Today, we're going to be talking about the interview process and making sure you get it right so you can hire the right people. Our guest today is Amber Trail.
Hi, thank you.
Yes, welcome. So tell us about you, Amber, and your organization and what you do there.
So I am the managing consultant at Prescott HR. My role is unique in that I have kind of two separate roles where I get to have my own clients that I work with and I adore. And then I also get to help support the consultants that we have on our team. So anywhere from, helping them with, potential concerns or ideas, support in all of those areas. So it's really been a fun journey.
Yes, thank you. We are excited. You also are responsible for our compliance updates, which is really important.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. So today we're talking about the interview process, right? And I guess before we even get into what that can look like, what that should look like, what happens what's at stake when the interview process fails, when it doesn't work?
Oh, several things. One being that you could potentially have a really good candidate that comes in to interview, but your questions are not that great. Your questions are not provoking the right answers that you want to hear, or finding out what skills they have. So, that could disinterest them, where you could have had a great candidate, a great potential employee, and you kind of ruined it.
Yeah.
And on the other end of that, you have to also be aware that if you're not asking the right questions, but you really like that individual, you could hire that person and lose them because you may not have asked the right questions.
Yes. I think that we've all made a bad hire because we didn't ask the right questions and we liked them and kind of just moved through the process, right? But even before we get to the interview process, right, there is the job posting, there is the, how does that person get to the point that their resume gets into the organization? And so when we think about the candidate experience, right, I mean, if you upload your resume, do you really still have to put your last 3 jobs and type them in, right?
Right.
So thinking about the number of steps that it takes before someone can actually submit their application. Do you need all of those things? Because the reality is that who's really looking at those applications?
Right.
You're going straight to the resume.
Right.
Do you need a cover letter?
Yeah.
And I understand you want to know that this person really wants to work for my company and I don't want them to send me a resume and they're just mass applying. Listen, people are mass applying. Okay? There's not a lot of jobs out there.
Right.
People are mass applying, and I get it. You want the right person for the job, but you're not that special, right? I mean, your organization is special, the role is special. Yes, you want to make sure you have the right person. But expecting candidates to do these heavy lifts prior to even submitting their resume stops people sometimes.
It does.
So there could be great candidates who could be a great match for your organization who never apply because your process is too cumbersome. Yeah?
A process should never be more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And if you have them, let's say you posted on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever you're posting it on, you've already listed the job description. Yeah. You've already maybe put in screener questions that kind of says, are you qualified for this? How many years of experience do you have in this? Let them upload their resume and that's it.
Yeah.
Don't make them fill out a whole other application on a site where they need to put where they've lived the last 5 years or where they've worked the last 10 years. It's just redundant and it stops people in their tracks.
It does. And if we do ask all those questions, let's save that for post-offer pre-employment when we're doing the background check, okay? We can ask all those questions then, right? Okay. So we've gotten to the point where they've applied for the job, okay? Because we've eliminated all those extra unnecessary steps. We are at the phase of the interview. Let's talk about what should an interview look like? What should the process look like? Because there are so many different things that people can do. There can be panel interviews. There can be virtual interviews, in-person interviews, meeting with 3 different people on the same day interviews.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about what does that look like? What are the pros and cons?
So the first interview I love to have with potential candidates is a phone interview. It should be no longer than 30 minutes. And I think it just verifies the information that they have put on their resume. They have the experience, they have the qualifications, what are some of their areas of interest, and just personality-wise, like, do you feel like they're going to fit in well in the organization? And number one, did they show up on time? Did they call you on time or show up on the Zoom on time? What was that process? Because if they were 20 minutes late, you're not wasting everyone's time in an in-person interview. You're able to do that in a short phone interview ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I feel like after that, if you have a really great candidate, then you move forward to the in-person interview. I know a lot of times it's typically a panel. I really do not suggest, unless it's a very high level position, that it should be more than, I'd say 3 people. It needs to be kind of short.
Well, we're going to talk about the other phases of interviews and the other types of interviews, but next I think we need a drink.
Perfect.
Yep. What would you like?
A peach bourbon smash.
All right. A peach bourbon smash coming right up. All right, so today Amber has chosen a peach bourbon smash. Amber, why'd you choose that drink?
I love peaches and bourbon.
Okay.
I've never had this one in particular, but I'm excited about it.
I'm excited too, and I love peaches too because I am a Georgia peach. I am from Georgia. So we're gonna get started. This recipe calls for a few leaves of basil, so we're gonna put those in our shaker. We don't have anything in our shaker right now. It's empty. We'll put a few basil leaves in there. We'll save a few for decoration. And then we're gonna use some lemon juice. So we have some lemon juice. We're gonna use 1.5 ounces. I have some fresh lemon that I squeezed. I always recommend using fresh juice whenever you can. And then I also have some fresh peaches that I have sliced because why not, right? So we're gonna put some peaches in here and we are going to muddle them with our muddler. So we're gonna muddle and also make a mess at the same time. We're gonna muddle these peaches and basil in here. Oh, this is gonna be really good. I'm telling you that right now. All right, awesome. So we've muddled that. And then we're gonna do 1 ounce of simple syrup. And you can make simple syrup. Sometimes I do make it, which is just equal parts sugar and water. Just heat it up and boil it really quickly and let it cool, and it is simple syrup. And then we are going to do 4 ounces of bourbon. And this is an extra large bottle of bourbon. I have to lift it up. We're going to do 4 ounces. Try not to knock that. I can't really carry this giant bottle of bourbon. It's very large. So we're going to do 4 ounces. I actually lost count, so I don't know how many there are. Okay, awesome. I don't know how many there are. I haven't even had this drink yet. All right, and now we're going to put some ice in here. And then we will shake it and strain it over our glass with ice in it. Make sure you get enough ice. I'm not going to put a lot in here right now for time, but just fill it up as much as possible with ice so you can get it nice and cold and make it just be as chilled as possible. So we're going to shake it until it's really cool. Under normal circumstances, I would shake it a little bit longer, but we're gonna pour it. Ooh. I know, it's really pretty. We're gonna pour it into our glasses. I'm sure there's like peach stuff. Yeah. All right, because it is very peachy. All right. And we're gonna just pour it over. Perfect. And we'll just put a couple of sprigs of basil.
Homegrown basil.
Yes, homegrown basil. That's right. I did grow this basil. All right. And cheers. Let's taste it. Very good.
Refreshing.
Yeah. All right. So we have our drinks. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so you talked about the phone screen and the in-person interview, which could be at this point hybrid, right?
Right.
The fact that if it's a panel interview, not more than 3 people. Mm-hmm. So what are some other options for the in-person interview?
Yeah, so just like you said, like it could be a Zoom or, a virtual interview, like the second step. It could be in person, which I think is great if it's for a position that's in the office full time. And having them meet, number one, who are they reporting to? I also think it's a really good idea to have at least one of their direct reports if that position is a supervisor type of role, because then it gives that direct report some kind of, feel as to how that person may interact with the rest of the team. Once those interviews are, set up, have it a seamless process. Mm-hmm. So email the candidate, letting them know, here's what time it is, here's the link if it's a virtual, here's the address if it's in person, here's who you'll be meeting with. Expect it to be about, 60 to 90 minutes long. Like, give them those expectations up front and dress code.
Yeah.
I am asked so many times with potential candidates, what is the dress code? Because they want to make sure that they show up, right. Presenting themselves in that role the correct way they feel. But I think it is very important to have a seamless process, having those steps set up, sent out to them early ahead of time. A reminder is a great idea to just remind them 24 hours ahead. Your interview's tomorrow. Here's what time it is. Here's the address or here's the Zoom link. Once that interview is ready, once you're there, it is very important to have questions prepared. You don't have to go with every question on the paper, but it's good to have that guide. It's really good for, if it's a panel, for them to kind of follow through just to make sure they're hitting on the skills and the qualifications, what it looks like to work in the organization, because you're not just getting that person to sell you their skills, you're selling the organization to them.
Yes. I think that's important because I do think that many organizations look at the interview as a one-way street. Like, I'm interviewing you. I want to see if I want you to come here, versus them also seeing if this is the place that this person wants to commit to coming to. And I think that that's important. I also agree, like having interview questions prepared in advance for that particular role is always helpful. Because you want to make sure, that for the most part, you're asking the same questions of the candidates. And I also agree that you don't necessarily have to ask all of the questions. I will tell you, when I do panel interviews, or particularly when I used to do them in person, if I was doing the interview and the person was bombing out of the gate, I would just put my pen at the top of my notebook, and then everybody else in the interview knew, this interview is over. We can skip to the last question, because I don't want to waste anyone's time.
Don't keep going.
Right. I mean, if this person, the first 3 or 4 questions, just completely, you can tell that is not it. Pen at the top. How I can't remember exactly what the queen used to do, but it had something to do with her purse. So she moved her purse from one side to the other or something like that. That meant it was time to go. And her handlers, and there was nothing in the purse, by the way. And she had a purse everywhere. She wants nothing in it. And it was just to let people know that she was ready to go.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is I'm putting my pen up here. We can wrap this up. Right. And I also think that the interviewers need to have some type of communication so that the people just aren't going and going. Yeah. And so on Zoom, I don't recommend you using the Zoom chat. But if you are in the same organization using whatever your company chat is, like, hey, we can wrap this up so that we're not wasting anyone's time. But I think everyone needs to be on the same page. But I think that when someone's not doing well in the interview, it's really obvious that person's not doing well in the interview.
Right. And I agree with you 1,000% because I was in an interview one time that the hiring manager sent me a Zoom chat that said absolutely not, and it went to everyone.
No.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And that was one of those moments where you just want to just turn Zoom off and just,
that's
crawl under a hole.
That's embarrassing. Yeah. So no. Note to everyone, do not use Zoom chat in an interview.
No.
Just in case. Just in case. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on, let's say, below manager level positions, individual contributor level positions, on having people meet with multiple people in the same day?
I really don't think it's necessary. I think it's too much, especially for that role. Like I said earlier, if it's a high level role, absolutely. But if it's an individual contributor, I think they really just need to meet with their hiring manager, who they're going to be working with, and then maybe potentially a colleague, who's going to be their coworker. And, if you want to show them around, let's say if it's a manufacturing company, if you want to show them around, have that potential coworker, show them around. Right. Because you give them that one-to-one time where it can be an honest conversation and they get the feel of what's the environment like, what's the culture like, but never more than 2 people, and don't keep them longer than 2 hours.
Yes, I can tell you, and I get it, organizations. I have a business too. I get it. You want to make sure you get the right person. Your business is special. I absolutely get that. But they need to meet with 4 or 5 different people at different times, passing this person around. They're spending 3 or 4 hours. That's too much.
It's exhausting.
It is. And we have to think about the candidate experience. This individual is deciding whether they want to work for you. And if you are team too much before I get here, I can only imagine what the experience is going to be like when I get here.
Right.
Right? So you mentioned earlier pre-screening questions. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
I have seen requests for basically dissertations, right? Is that necessary?
Absolutely not.
So what should pre-screening questions include? Pre-screening
questions should truly just be, okay, how many years of experience do you have in this skill? What certifications do you have? What industry experience do you have? Do not ask for paragraph-long answers. Right. You're wasting their time and your time. You just need the basics. Because what happens is when you post a position, they can apply online. You just need to know if they truly meet the qualifications. Of course, someone could lie about it. Of course they could. But if you are already seeing, okay, I've got 5 really qualified people based on their pre-screening questions, you look at their resume. If their resume does not match up to what they answered, that's not a good fit. Right. But if it does, that's a potentially good candidate.
Yes.
So the pre-screening questions need to be short. I would have no more. 10's pushing it. I would say maybe 5. Yeah. Just to gather, even if it's an in-office position, are you able to get to the office or, comfortably commute to the office? Whatever that question looks like, it's a yes or no.
Yes.
It does not need a paragraph.
Because that's what the phone screen is for.
Yes.
The phone screen is to dig into those things. This is to answer some basic logistics questions, like, are you authorized, to work in the United States?
Right.
Are you able to come into the office? Or this is a hybrid position that requires you to be in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to submit to a background and drug test? Those types of questions, right? Because someone could say no to those things. And then you can say, all right, that's not my first choice to move forward.
Right.
So I don't think, but I've seen so many that ask all of these questions. And, again, the candidate experience. People self-select out of the process. Now, there are some organizations that look at that as good. They didn't really want to work here. It's like they don't know you yet. They don't know anything about you. You are a stranger to them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so the same way that you don't want to jump through hoops to do certain things because you're not sure whether you want to commit to that yet or not. The same thing for a candidate. Like, let me learn about you.
Right.
Right.
Right. And even after you go through those pre-screening questions, dig into it a little bit more in that phone interview process.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to happen is let's say that job requires you to be in person Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And you get through the final interview. You're ready to submit the offer letter. And they say, oh, no, I can only come in office on Monday and Tuesday. So that it's really it's a way to save time for everybody if you're asking those right pre-screening questions.
Correct. Exactly. And what about testing?
It depends. I am not personally a huge fan of testing.
Yep.
I feel that is something that, you can gather their skill based off of their answers. And it, again, depends on what kind of testing.
Yeah.
If they're dealing with a lot of numbers, it may be some type of a Excel test to see because they're in Excel 90% of their job. So something like that. But, personality assessments, any type of other test that you would have them do, I don't agree with. I think it's too much. I think that they either have the skill or they don't. And that's something that once they're on the job, if it's an area that you can develop, have a development plan.
Yeah. And what about, I'm going to give you a problem that is something that we would do in the workplace, or write a proposal for me, or, giving them some type of work in something that could take them 2 or 3 hours to do.
I don't agree with that. I think that is not necessarily a waste of time, but I truly think that it puts too much pressure on the person because they don't know the ins and outs of the organization. They don't know what you're looking for.
Right.
They're not going to know that until they're actually in there working for at least 90 days.
Right.
So I think that those types of questions are just, if you need a writing sample, great. Make it short. Make it a paragraph. Don't ask very scenario-specific questions that will take them hours to complete.
Yeah. And I think also there are some compliance things to consider as well, right? So when you're talking about testing, you have the testing according to the EEOC has to be content valid and construct valid, meaning it needs to test what it's supposed to test for, and that it needs to deliver the same results if they were to take it multiple times, right? And so that's why it's recommended that you use a vendor that takes on that risk. So if you're going to do Excel testing, go to a testing company that does Excel testing, pay $45 and let this person take the test. Then you hand the risk off to someone else, right? So they can't then say, well, the test had bias built into it. Well, maybe they can say it, but the vendor will then take that responsibility. But I've seen a lot of times where organizations create their own Excel test or their own, well, I created like a math test or engineering test. And it's like, yeah, but that could have bias built into it. It could have shortcuts that that they may not know, but they could have still gotten the same answer. So testing, when done through a vendor, will take all of those things into account, right? And so I think that's important. And then going to personality testing, like I get it. Like there are a lot, we use DISC, in our organization for our leadership team, but that's not something that I would do for someone before they start.
Right.
It would be something that I do once they start to understand what their communication style is so that as a team, we can know, okay, Amber's an IS. And so this is what it means to communicate with Amber. But I don't need that information before I hire them because I'm not hiring a specific profile of person. And that can be risky when you do that too.
Yeah.
And I know that diversity is a bad word to some, but it's not really because diversity of personalities, diversity of thinking styles, that's what teams need.
Right.
We need all different types of thinkers. And when you're hiring into a particular profile because you're like, well, this is who our team is.
Right.
You miss out.
You do. You become biased and you feel like you need everyone to be on the same page, but it's so good to have that healthy conflict where someone is questioning, wait a second, what about this piece?
Yes.
What we're missing this.
Yes.
So that healthy conflict is so good for a team. And if you have everyone of the same personality type, that becomes difficult.
And it's going to create some gaps.
Yes.
Lots of gaps. We just went through an exercise where we talked about our personality styles on our leadership team, and we realized we were like, we need to, make sure that we're filling into this one thing, but not because we were bringing people onto the team for that purpose, but it just happened to be, right? Okay. So when we get into the interview, what are the things that managers should be focusing on in the interview process? What are the competency skills that they should be focusing on?
They need to focus on the skills. They need to ask them about their prior experiences in those specific skills. If they have qualifications, let's say they need 5 years of this specific, experience. Ask them about it. Talk to them about their experience. Get into if they say, but it wasn't really a good experience. Don't leave it at that. Ask, why wasn't it? Because you want to make sure that you're providing them the tools and support. If you bring that individual on, okay, I know that they said they don't have this or there was a bad experience, but they need to do the same thing. How do we make it a good experience? And I think it also helps you. Maybe they have some skills that they don't need for the job, but could help you down the line. So asking them about their skills and their qualifications, keeping it, short, but digging into it a little bit when it's appropriate.
Right.
And you have to be very cautious of what questions you ask. If the candidate brings up, let's say, I'm pregnant, I'm due in 5 months. Don't dig into it. Do not ask anything else.
Right.
So you just have to know what you can and cannot talk about. And if the candidate brings it up, okay, but we have to know that we can't make our decisions based off something they brought up.
Exactly. And I think that's important to your point. If they're pregnant, well, are you going to be able to work? Well, how much time are you going to take off because you won't have FMLA? Like, don't worry about all that. If this person is the best person for the job, then we have to then consider, what are state pregnancy laws? What, are there ADA implications to it? So there are a variety of things we have to think about. So we can't really deal with that in the interview. And we need to make sure that our managers understand that. We'll talk about training managers in just a second who are interviewing. But those are things that we definitely have to consider. When thinking about interview questions, though, there are some doozies out there that people ask. And I know that one that used to be really popular that I'm seeing go away, which I'm actually proud of, is the, tell me what your biggest weakness is. It's like, what are you gaining from that? What I have started to see, what I've started to see is tell me about a time when a project went wrong and what did you learn from that? I think that's a better question because it's really about, things don't always go right, but how do you learn from it and bounce back versus what is your biggest weakness? Like,
they're not going to tell you.
They don't. They always say, well, my biggest weakness is that I work too hard. Like, they never give anything like useful.
Or I'm too detailed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those types of things. But I know that there are people who ask like really weird, what I call cutesy questions. I heard of one manager who used to ask like, if you were a superhero, who would you be? And it's like, really? Like, what are you learning from this person
Nothing.
related to the job from that question, right? And so I'm like, because I'm like, oh, I would fail. I've never seen a superhero movie, right? So what are some cutesy questions that you've heard?
I definitely, I think it's, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not really a cutesy question, but in all honesty, like maybe back in my early 20s, I could have answered that. But to ask me now at almost 40, like where do you want to be in 10 years? My priorities have shifted and shifted so much on my focus of life itself. Like, I want to grow and develop. I don't know what that looks like. Like, I'm always learning. I'm always growing. But it's one thing that drives me crazy because what do you expect out of that? Like, what are you gaining from that?
Yeah. And I also think that some of that, though, is them trying to assess whether or not that person wants to be there long term. Yeah. And it's like, listen, after they stopped giving pensions, long term, if I can transfer my 401k, then and another opportunity comes, I'm going to do it. And we have to be prepared for that as organizations. So I agree with you. I don't know what that question gets. And if you had asked me 10 years ago what I wanted to do, I surely wouldn't have been able to tell you I'd be sitting here.
Right. Yeah. It just changes and shifts. And another question that is completely irrelevant to anything is, what kind of animal would you be?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't ever think about being an animal.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I would have been one of the Queen's corgis. That would have been awesome.
You would have had an answer though.
Yeah, but I literally just thought of that. It didn't mean anything to me.
Right. It doesn't reflect who you are or anything like that. It's just such an odd question to ask a candidate.
And it doesn't have anything to do with job relatedness. And I think that's the key thing. So as we roll into one of the last things that I want to cover, is how do we train managers, right, on how to effectively interview, legally interview, and create a good experience for candidates, because the questions that they need to be asking need to be job related. All of these cute things. What kind of animal would you be? None of us are Sigmund Freud. I don't know what you're trying to get out of this question, right? My answer purely was because I want to be well kept, right? But it has nothing to do with the job.
Right.
It just means that I want to have like a wealthy benefactor.
Right.
So how do we make sure that we're training managers, and what does that look like?
I think it's in regards to training them. If you have an HR person, whether it's in-house or outsourced, if you have a set of questions that you've been asking, ask that HR professional to look at those questions. Relate it back to the position. I think as an HR consultant, it's our role to make sure that, we inform them, don't touch on these questions. Do not talk about personality. Do not talk about looks. Do not, and don't, even if they bring it up, because I will get asked that question, well, what if they bring it up? No. Stop. Do not get into it any further. I know one of the things is you can ask, can you do this job with or without an accommodation? Don't get into it any further. Don't ask about specific accommodations.
Right.
So just training them on what's okay and what's not okay to focus on is very important. I tend to focus with new managers or managers who have done it for a while, not necessarily the right way. Focus on what not to bring up.
Yeah.
Because they know what the job is. They know what skills to look for. They know what qualifications to look for. So they know the job. What they don't know is, what can I not talk about?
Yes. And I also think that, helping them to understand, like, that everything that they write, the notes in the margins, all of those things have to be discoverable. And I tell them that, like, this could be discoverable. If the person feels that they didn't get a job for a specific reason, they're going to want to look at those notes. They're going to see that. And if you put absolutely not or other, well, you could put that, but, but physical descriptions
Yes.
or, loser. I've seen all kinds of things on notes, on resumes. And, yeah. So I think we can probably come back and talk about this topic again. There are so many other things. But thank you so much, Amber, for I think that this is really great information for our listeners. And thank you for joining us for this episode of HR and Cocktails.